Hey guys, my name is Dominic Flux. I'm a custom jewelry designer, and today we're going to be going over vintage diamond cuts, specifically rose cuts and old mine European cuts. Just to give you a little bit of idea what they are, what celebrities are wearing them, and kind of just like the general feel of like the history and where they come from. So hope you enjoy. Smash that like button, subscribe if you want to get more jewelry content. We always have short form content on our Instagram if you are interested, Fine and Flux. So hope to see you there, and let's jump into it. So let's start with rose cuts, because they're the most popular of the two vintage styles. What is a rose cut? It's basically a type of cut that has very few facets. And when I'm talking about facets, I'm actually talking about those little windows on the stone. Those are the facets. And so the traditional diamond cut that we see today has about 57 facets. These ones can be as low as 3 to about 24 facets on the stone. So they kind of have much bigger windows, and this can be kind of beneficial and not beneficial, which we will touch on in just a little bit, but that's like the general aesthetic. It also has a flat base. So in comparison to the traditional diamond, you have the top of the diamond and it goes down into a point. Well, this isn't going to do that. It's really going to sit flat. And this is actually a really great way of, for the same carat weight, having more surface. Like, it's going to be actually larger and wider than it is deep. So you get a much bigger size for the same carat weight as a traditional diamond. So that's also kind of like a little fun fact. But these diamonds became popular in the 1500s all the way up to like the early 1900s. They were very popular in the Georgian and Victorian era, primarily because they didn't have the technology that we have today to cut diamonds, or any gemstone really. Like today, our diamonds are going to be cut machine. So these were kind of like the predecessors, which were cut by hand. Rose cuts became quite popular, I'd say, within the last 5 years. They really started to bounce back for, I guess, more kind of like the alternative engagement ring. So you can find them in all different cool shapes. They come in round shapes, oval shapes. They also come in like free form. So if you're somebody who wants a very alternative looking or just a more organic feel to your jewelry, this is a really good option for you. I would say we don't really find high quality diamonds for this style of cut. The reason why is because diamond material itself is very expensive. And so when you're buying such an expensive material, you want to kind of like optimize so that it has the highest brilliance. And so when you're cutting it with only, let's say 20 facets, that's not going to make it sparkle. And so to buy such an expensive material for it to kind of fall flat doesn't make sense, which is why we're going to see more semi-precious gemstones in this kind of like, for this cut. Like you'll see like morganites, you'll see white sapphires, white topaz. Sometimes we see colored sapphires. We see a lot of pepper diamonds. So this is more kind of the gemstones that you're going to see for these cuts. Speaking of pepper diamonds, this is such a cool gemstone. I'd love to know if you guys want to hear me do an actual video on pepper diamonds, because they're a very unique style. Pepper diamonds are basically diamonds that have like very heavily included, and they look phenomenal with rose cuts. Because what ends up happening is if you have a rose cut, the windows are huge. So every little imperfection it's like a window. You're going to see it all, which is why when you have really cool patterns for like pepper diamonds, phenomenal. I love it. They look great, especially for cool alternative engagement rings. I wish we saw it more in high jewelry, but we don't. So maybe we can start a trend here. I don't know. In terms of celebrities who have rose cut engagement rings, we have Allison Brie. I absolutely love this girl. She looks like such a sweetheart. Rose cut engagement ring. It has a double halo, which is just kind of like a little unique touch. Her engagement ring is estimated to be at 50 to 100K. So I'm not a huge fan of like the shank. I did find it a little bit thick and makes it a kind of a little bit bulky, but overall it was a nice ring. Next we have Zoë Kravitz, who actually bought like kind of like an estate piece. So it is an actual vintage engagement ring, and she chose more of an actual wedding band for her engagement ring, because I think in today's standards most people try to find like an engagement ring and then a wedding band, But for her, she just chose a much more ornate wedding band, which is something that you can always do. Her ring is estimated at $36,000, so it is definitely a little bit more modest, but it's a really cool piece if you like that style. Next we have Camila Alves, who is Matthew McConaughey's wife. She has a very cool rose cut piece. So hers was actually kind of more mounted like a solitaire. When you look at her ring, I find that it kind of brings it back to the point of what I said earlier, of that like when you're cutting diamond, it doesn't give it that brilliance because it doesn't have enough facets. I find that hers looks a little bit dull for this reason. So I'd love to know what you guys think, what your favorite of the three are. Next, we're going to touch on old mine and European cut diamonds. These were diamonds that we found in the 1700s to 1800s. They are the predecessor to the brilliant cut diamond. And in order to get started on those size of diamonds, we actually have to understand what the brilliant cut is today. In today's standards, the general diamond that we're going to have cut is called the brilliant cut diamond. It came into play in 1919, and it had, one of the main differences is that this is when technology came into play and diamonds were no longer cut by hand. So these were really machine cut. They're kind of like cut to perfection, if you will. The facets became much more even, much more like perfect, made to optimize the actual brilliance of the diamond. And so that is why these old mine diamonds and these European cut diamonds were so romanticized, and they're very sought after because they're kind of like the only diamonds on the market today that were hand cut. You don't see that anymore. Each single diamond was selected and hand cut, and so it has just like a very different feel to it than the standardized diamond that we have today. You know, they used to take the diamond and they used to decide by eye how the best way to optimize it and cut it so that it would look its best. So we have the old mine cuts and we have the European cuts. The old mine cuts were the predecessor to the European, so they did come like in the early 1700s. European cuts came much later in the 1800s, and you will actually understand visually just by seeing the old mine cuts really follow the shape of the actual diamond crystal. And so when you're going to be looking at it, diamond crystals, they're called octahedral. They're kind of like these weird kind of like diamond shapes. And so they would actually cut along this shape, which is why oftentimes they're a little bit more almost like a cushion cut. They're more kind of like a squarish shape versus European cuts. You'll start to see that they become rounder. They start to kind of perfect the art of making a diamond, making it more aesthetically even. Old mine cuts have much bigger, chunkier facets. European cuts, exactly, they start to become more refined, a lot more elongated. So it's kind of like you can really see the history between like the old mine cuts to the European cuts to the brilliant cuts. Like there's a very clear like visual pathway of like it's getting more and more refined. Both of these styles of vintage diamonds, you can totally see that they are because they have cullets, which means that the point of the diamond was actually cut, creating an additional facet because they believed at the time that having this extra facet would help with the brilliance. I personally don't like it. When I see a diamond with like the circle on the top, I don't find it visually aesthetic. It kind of bothers me, but a lot of people like that. So it's really like a personal preference. So these types of diamonds are really cool because they're no longer being produced. Of course, you can always have like a diamond custom cut if you wanted to like reproduce that style of diamond. But, you know, other than that, they're no longer being produced, which means that whatever is on the market is whatever is on the market. And so they can be really tricky to find. Which is kind of part of the fun of it. So it's like a little bit of hunt whenever somebody does want that. Last thing that I want to touch on is you never want to compare an old mine diamond or rose cut diamond to today's quality standard because they're always going to fall short. You know, today they're really cut to perfection, the brilliant cut. And so if you compare an old mine diamond that is faceted by hand and much chunkier facets, it's always going to fall short. So just keep that in mind, especially like the color, right? These old mine diamonds were actually mined in Brazil, India, before they found high quality mines in Africa and Russia. So the standards and of quality of rough material is not the same. And so I strongly advise you to just enjoy the beauty of your stone and not be so caught up at looking at the grading value. In terms of celebrities who have old mine and European cut diamonds, my very, very favorite one of everyone is actually Mary-Kate Olsen. She actually has a 4-carat engagement ring that was purchased at Sotheby's auction house. The ring is estimated to be worth 81,000 US, and it's actually a vintage Cartier. It is a stunning ring. The mounting is beautiful. It's decorated by sapphire pave, which is very hard to do. Like, if you actually look at it, they are little princess cuts that are perfectly aligned. That's always a headache. I know. As a jeweler, they need to be perfectly cut. So her ring is absolutely stunning. I love it. It's such a non-traditional engagement ring. So kudos for her for buying vintage. It's very cool. Next, we have Natalie Portman. Her as well. She has an old mine diamond. It's 4-cut. It comes with a double halo. It's estimated to be between 35 to 90,000. And every single time I was reading about her engagement ring, she is somebody who wanted a more ethical option, which is why I think she chose a diamond that had already been mined and recycled. She also used recycled platinum. So I think that's very cool, because if you are somebody who cares about that, there's so many options for ethical gemstones. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'd love to know what style you guys like if you're looking to get one, and I hope to see you next time.